Chapter 54. An empty tin cup fell from the fingers of a sleeping hand, echoing in the quiet hall. The feet of two dogs clicked on the stone floor as they searched from plate to plate for scraps. Through the windows cast a pale, metallic blue light of early dawn. The elves made room for the warriors. The ladder and the puppets lie dispersed throughout the rooms, stacked within the valley walls, all strewn and sprawled, sleeping heavily from a good night's feast. Maya came to the railing of the valley wall in the brisk morning air. A cold wind rolled over the waterfall and down the fjord from the north. Maya peered into the breeze. Chico rolled over in his watchtower bed, kingly room, windows open to the crescent moon, through cascading water losing its yellow glow of night. Just then, with a whirlwind, Ur was on the terrace with an urgent air. "Ur, my boy," Chico said, sitting up. "Chico," Ur said, breathing heavily. "It's Raju, the dark boards, passing through the Laponian gate as we speak." "So they are," Chico said, standing up at once and throwing on his boots. He grabbed his axe board from the wall. "Spread the word," Chico said. "Everyone, assemble in the fjord immediately." There was a grabbing of boards and boots throughout the quarters. All were poised. There was laser-like focus in the air. Adam handed Maya her board. "We've come so far, sis," Adam said. "No way we're going down now." "No way," Maya said. "They will pay for what they did to you." She grabbed his shoulders. "Good luck out there." "You say it like I'd ever leave your side," Adam said. A smile forced its way up into Maya's bottom lip with pride. "You raised them right," Ubuntu said to Dharma, sliding on her boots. "They did it themselves," Dharma sighed with love. "Yes, and so you raised them right," Ubuntu said, pointing to Dharma's heart, "even if from somewhere else." The warriors gathered in the fjord, filling the valley with their numbers. Loose clothing fluttered in the breeze. The sea of riders floated, outlined against the blue-gray sky. Chico levitated at the helm. "Riders," he pierced the silence of the morning. "Today we fight. For Zetafungo, for freedom, for Earth." The riders roared like nobody was watching. Dharma and Ubuntu hovered at Chico's side. "Today," Chico continued, "we remove the lie of fear, restore the clarity of reality." "For the babies," Dharma whispered. "We do it for all the babies," Chico shouted, "who see it clear and pure." The warriors roared again, rocking on their boards within the crowd, energy rising in the situation, with Chico's words the solvent. "We ride," Chico shouted, "for the head of the beast." He screamed in fury, and the riders cascaded over the walls of the fjord, north to the mountains. And north the riders flew, crossing over fjords and mountains, high lakes and endless pine forest. Maya looked out to the west, where the sea was visible, and the dim, cold sky mixed with the iron sea of the same, no horizon to speak of. To the east she saw the sun peeking over the land, rising toward the cloud line. Soon it would be swallowed by the overcast dome. The riders looked upon the burst of sunrise in stoic meditation. There was a fullness of presence in the soldiers. They were one, united, mind, body, and soul extended into numbers. The pack, the pride, the herd, but more so like a deadly school of fish, piranhas, or a swarm of killer bees. The sun slipped behind the dome of the clouds, and in the distance the enemy came into view, appearing numerous and dark as their grid blanketed the hills. The metallic soldiers slowed their march to a halt in the mountains. The black smoke birds, with dark electric wings, flapped and hovered over the forces. They came to rest in a broad valley, facing Jiko and the riders. Radu and Jiku, Dharma and Ubuntu, with the lesser hooded figures, rise before the warring armies, poised and buzzing with the highest frequencies summoned. Spirit of war summoning forms of inaccessible until signals are given. Face to face they float in bright gray sky, fluttered cloaks in wind. "This is your last chance, Radu," Jiko yelled. "Call your men off and come with us. We will make use of you. Your only punishment will be to watch the peaceful prosper of the world." The riders hovered in the shadow of Jiko, elves, puppets, jungle warriors, fronted by Maya and Adam. The motley forces were a valiant effort in the face of the metallic army of the dark boards, but ultimately a pale comparison to their numbers. "I only offer you a similar fate," Radu hisses. "Join me, and I will sap your power, drain your souls, yes, but leave you alive to finally come to the realization that the dark boards are the future, the logical evolution of the universe." "You are the worst, Radu," Jiko said, "and somehow even worse than I remember, with your new little crew you've got behind you." "And you're the same old Jiko, fat and destined to lose," Radu said. And with that, Jiko launched into the attack that started the battle. The riders burst forth, screaming across the valley. The metallic soldiers mounted their boards robotically and blasted off across the valley. The puppets, the jungles, the birds electric. The masses came together with an enormous crash of flesh and wood and metal. Puppets exploded upon contact. "We'll take the birds then," Zara yelled. "Yes, puppets will work on the birds." Riders were swooping down with crossing blows. The air was filled with a mad frenzy of fighting. Jata dodged a blow, swooping in with power, dodging one more soldier, smashing down the back of Metal Moron's head. The attack was not as critical as Jata had hoped. The soldier took the blow and came for Jata in the air. The jungle fighters with heavy boards and bodies had some luck with deliberate, forceful attacks. The elves attempted their initial board attacks, but retorted to more strategic methods. 3 elves came through from one direction. Pink, pink, pink. Another 3 elves came across the other way, a deadly X. Critical hit. But this was 6-to-1 in ratio, whereas one metallic soldier took out 6 elf riders by himself. Adam fled the clutches of 3 dark boarders chasing through the battle. Adam led them through a cliff hole in the nearby mountains. With one maneuver, sent them crashing into rocks, and Maya came and finished with a smashing, flat and powered by her board. "Now that's what I call teamwork," Adam remarked. Dharma and Ubuntu, back to back, send bands of orange and yellow light into the dark attacking masses, streaming in on them from all directions, sending orange and yellow lasers, saving those in need. Jiko singled out Radu. The feeling was mutual. The Viking and the faceless white hood rose above the battle. They blasted toward each other with supersonic imminence. The white-hot impact emitted an almost digital explosive ion ring of energy. Jiko tipped the scales and started driving on Radu. Radu began to gouge Jiko's eyes and bite his bicep, tearing at his flesh. Jiko, spinning to the earth, now threw Radu 6 feet down into the ground, following, smashing him into the crater, milling through the earth with bolts of energy and thrashing through the dirt. In spite of Jiku, Dharma, and Ubuntu's efforts, the forces of the dark boards moved like a violent glacier, scraping the armies of the boardsmen from the earth. "They're just too heavy," Adam shouted, seeing his army starting to come apart at the seams. "Resist," Zara screamed, flying by on the back of a bird. 20 puppets labored on the black beast, smoking, bolting blue electric. "Rip its neck out," Zara shouted to the crew. They pulled on the beast's wings and beat its back until it flew into the ground, crashing, dying, final bolts of blue like sparks emitting. Nearby riders cheering. Zara and the puppets were out for blood, jumping on the backs of birds and biting them. Jiko sees the army pushing down on them. Fighting Radu, he slashes a spinning, enlarging board of bright green light through the crowd of metal soldiers, mowing down a region. Radu hisses yet again. "The boardsmen, you worthless gimps, target the boardsmen," Radu shouts at the lesser hoods. "They are the only things standing between us and the tree." Arthur and Dracul enclosed on Dharma and Ubuntu, whittling away at the forces of the metal soldiers. "I'm going to have to ask you to stop that," Dracul charged. Ubuntu fielded his attack. She fell back, caught him with her board, and sent him crashing at the wall of a nearby cliff. She smashed a ball of bright orange light in his direction. "I'll deal with both of you," Arthur said, rising slowly, summoning white ghost powers. A phantom aura surrounded him. "Somebody's been stealing from the cookie jar of siphoned spirit," Dharma says. "You know, that's my son's power you're wearing there. You should really give it back." Dharma sent a disk of yellow light, her board spinning madly at Dracul. Ubuntu charged. The phantom aura disembodied itself and caught Dharma's attack, but Ubuntu bull rushed full force into the phantom gut, through the specter, into Arthur, driving him into a tree trunk, planting on his body, sending Dharma back her board. "Thanks, sis," Dharma said. Elsewhere, the Jiko-Radu matchup continues. Radu pulverizes Jiko, flat on his back, into a rocky hillside, sending carnage into the air. Jiko bench presses Radu's board from his chest. "You killed my brother," Jiku screams, in rage. "I don't care about your plans. I don't care about your war. I want you dead." Jiko lands 2 crossing blows, knocking back the hood, revealing Radu's silicone skin, oozing fresh black and purple blood. Radu wiped the blood from his face, looking at it on his fingers. "I will personally escort you to your brother soon enough," Radu said. "You can join him in the bottomless black pit that is the void of no return, and you can burn for 1,000 years on your way down," Radu screamed, with a guttural yell and power coming from a different place. He lashed out at Jiko, beaming white lightning from his board. Jiko caught Radu's lightning with a cracking green light. They countered board attacks, climbing high above the battle once more. Dharma and Ubuntu looked up at Jiku and Radu locked in battle. The air around them began to form a vortex, dark, swirling slow, and changing directions. They were sending their boards flying, throwing, kicking white and green eruptions, blowing out the darkness and coming crashing back and pressing in, locking in a stalemate, light coming from their boards. The war raged below. Soldiers of the dark boards gaining momentum, absorbing weak attacks like nothing. The unstoppable force grinded through the mountains, leaving a trail of soldiers of the boardsmen in its path. The metallic army pressed southward, encroaching on old Jiko territory. Above, Radu got a hold of Jiko and began to spin. The revolutions began to glow in red and white and black, and suddenly he launched Jiko, sending him across the landscape, landing in a trough and finally a crater. "Fall back," Ubuntu shouted to her waning forces. "Regroup." The riders climbed behind the ravine inside the mountainsides. The dark boards continued, assuming grid position again. Radu wiped the blood from both his cheeks. He was smiling a nasty grin with bright black eyes fixed ahead. His generals joined his side and removed their black hoods, revealing porcelain skin and bright red eyes. Dracul began to snicker. Behind cover, Maya and Ubuntu sat with Dharma, watching them advance like a magma. "They're just too heavy," Adam panted. "Jiko's dead." "Will you stop saying they're too heavy?" Maya answered. "Jiko's not dead. I see him twitching." "What are we gonna do?" Adam asked. "We will fight," Ubuntu said. "We will win." "Where is the science behind that?" Adam cried. "Stay in the moment," Dharma said. "Fight to the very last drop. As long as I have sight, I will fight with all my might." "All my might, my Adam." Maya, mesmerized by war or fighting, gazes wide-eyed at the battle. The scattered riders of her side performing acts of valor, squished into the mud. The puppets flung off birds and were electrocuted. She looks at huddled riders on the hillside, breathing heavily, catching their breath. She holds her board and, looking down, begins to see a picture in her mind. Her dad, her family, on a sunny day inside their house. Her mom is home. The white curtains blowing in the breeze, the green grass outside. Everything is perfect. She wants to live in a world where this can exist. She can't give in. In fact, deep within her, a switch is flipped, and nothing matters but the light of her vision, the light from everywhere illuminating the room inside the house, the yard where Adam sits with Dad, the light, the light, the light. "Maya?" Dharma startles her away from her 1,000-mile stare. "Are you all right?" "I am," Maya answered. She holds her arm out, noticing she's glowing with a radiating yellow light. Dharma holds her hand and watches as the light spreads up her own arm and through her body. She reaches out and spreads it to Ubuntu, who throws her arms on Adam. He blooms in confidence again and reaches out to Niku, slowly spreading this subtle glow. It comes from Maya's mind into reality. The riders glow and rise up from their retreat. From behind the mountainside they ride, emergent once again, and take it to the forces of the dark boards. Even Jiko rose from his slumber, as if he had heard a sweet tune float over the hills. He sat up and brushed the dust off his shoulders, and then went directly for Radu to finish what he started. The entire trifold army was renewed by Maya's spirit. The warriors of the Tree of Life lent to one another second and third boards to stack and multiply accordingly in their power of attack, while the lender themselves assumed their animal forms of gorillas, lions, panthers, and certain of them elephants. This proved to be the most effective tactic of ground combat thus far. The elves began unleashing attacks of air, pneumatic darts from beneath their boards as vortex torpedoes spiraled into the soldiers, setting them back, some of them stunned, but the majority shaking it off, returning to combat one by one. "It's not enough," Bella yelled out. Jiku laid into Radu again, leading with a shoving of his hardwood board directly into Radu's gut, knocking the wind out of him. Dropping the gloves, he simply began to wail on Radu's face with his bare hands. This also proved to be a surprisingly effective tactic. "You old," Jiku said and punched. Saggy, punch again. Plastic, hard punch. "Bag," Chico said, knocking Radu back. But Radu returned a board kick to the side of Jico's knee, and when he bent down, a board kick uppercut to Jico's chin. Jico hunched again. "Our first order will be to cover the forests with concrete," Radu said. "Get rid of the wretched mold of green." Jico roared. He sent a missile of his board at Radu's head, but Radu dodged it. The board went sailing into the distance, and Radu continued his siege on Jico. Dharma and Ubuntu stole glances of the barrage of their brother, but were unable to break from their own battles to help him. They tirelessly fended off Dracul and Arthur and the other hoods, while simultaneously throwing everything they had at the advancing legions of the dark boards. But the soldiers of tungsten and mercury and dolomite just kept coming. Winding into the distance, they trampled over riders of the boardsmen as they came. Slowly but surely, the weight of the dark boards pushed south. The battle was pushed down through the mountainous terrain into a broad forest of towering pines. The silky, bright gray clouds of overcast afternoon stretched across the landscape. Blended, timeless grays, stretching thin, still stretching thin. They entered the pines.